Joining our certification network group session today. We're very excited to have this last virtual meeting of the 2025-20 year. My name is Belinda Brenner, and on behalf of the Virtual Planning Committee for CNG, I want to welcome you to our session, which we are very excited to have a discussion about innovative uses of AI in credentialing. We will be getting to the educational part of our session in just a minute, but first of all, I want to thank our sponsors and introduce them to let them talk a little bit about their companies. So I'm going to start, but before we do that, I want to just go over some housekeeping chores. Please stay on mute while you're listening. You can drop any questions in the chat as we go. You should see at the bottom of your screen a little icon for chat, and there will be two opportunities for Q&A. So with that, I want to get to our sponsors, and I'd like to introduce Christine Nero, who is from Professional Testing, and she'll be talking about its services. Christine.
Belinda, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to sponsor this webinar and to tell you a little bit about professional testing. So we've been a certification and credential development company since the late 1970s, and our approach is to partner with clients to develop mutually beneficial, long-lasting relationships. And this is something that we really, really pride ourselves on. We provide services to government agencies, associations and certification bodies, licensing authorities, and corporations. Belinda, could you advance the slide, please? We are headquartered in Orlando, Florida, and we have an office in Denver. And I'm showing you these photographs so you can see the ample and really nice meeting space that we have for our clients. And we make our meeting space available to our clients free of charge. We will go anywhere in the country or the world to work with our clients, and we love it when they come and work with us. If you could go to the next slide, please, Belinda. This is just an example of some of the professions and industries that we serve. We have a wide range. I mean, healthcare, AV, IT, security, construction, finance, and much more. If you want to go ahead to the next one, you can see a sample of some of the clients that we serve. And I wanted to let you know that we do have a wide range in terms of the volume of exams and test takers that we work with, from very small size clients to really, really large clients. If you go to the next slide for me, please. Professional testing, I wanted just to highlight a few of the areas that we think are unique in some ways to us. First of all, our full service psychometric consulting, the research studies on candidates and testing populations that we're able to provide, and that we are also a consolidator and test administration provider through Pearson and Prometric. And what this means is that professional testing will serve as the client to these companies, and we will aggregate our volumes for our smaller clients so they are able to meet the minimums and able to use these testing channels through this type of consolidator agreement that we have for them. Otherwise, the smaller clients may not have access to these types of services. And then we also publish to numerous testing companies everywhere. If you could go to the next slide, please, I can talk a little bit about our core services. So I mentioned psychometrics and full service for job analysis studies, item development and editing. We do training and workshops as well as the work in this. Item analysis studies, we'll maintain your item banks. We do the passing score studies, equating, anything that you need for any type of examination that you're offering, for how many types of exams you have and content areas that you have within your organization. We also provide services and program development where we will help you design your eligibility and prerequisites, your recertification programs, help you prepare your supporting documents like candidate handbooks. We have deep expertise in policy and procedures and management systems, and will help you design those. And then in governance, we can advise on board and committee structures, SME selection, qualifications. We provide leadership training and development, as well as strategic planning. If you go to the next slide, please, Belinda. I wanted to talk about accreditation as one of our core services where we have very deep expertise in both ISO and IEC 17024 administered in the United States through ANAB, as well as the NCCA. And we conduct gap analysis studies for your readiness, internal audits for conformity with 17024. We'll help you with policy development, governance and organizational structures, and we prepare reports to demonstrate compliance, like item analysis reports or passing score studies or JTA reports. And all of our reports are at the level of acceptability and beyond for both of these accreditation standards. We'll also help you prepare your application and correct any of your nonconformities that are cited or deficiencies that are noted to help you achieve accreditation. We're also very active in standards development for both certification and certificate programs, having worked with ANSI, ANAB, and ASTM. And most recently, we've worked with ISO on Work Group 30, which is the work group tasked to revise the accreditation standard ISO IEC 17024. 3 of our personnel, including me, are deeply involved in this and active on Work Group 30. And one of our psychometricians, Dr. Cynthia Woodley, is the co-convener of this work group. So stay tuned for further announcements and developments with that standard revision. If you go to the next slide, you can learn more about us at www.proftesting.com. You can reach out to me directly, Christine Nero, at cnero@proftesting.com, or direct some questions you may have to our info@proftesting.com. And for my final slide, Belinda, please, I would like to thank you again for this opportunity to sponsor this session and to support the really good work of CNG. So thank you and welcome to this session. I hope you enjoy it.
Thanks very much, Christine. Now we're going to hear from Missy from Prometric. Missy, are you on?
Good morning. Yes, Christine, that was a tough act to follow. You were so gracious. And I agree. Thank you, CNG, for the opportunity to be here and to sponsor. I'm Missy Pito. I'm Vice President of Global Client Strategy at Prometric. And I have got about 6 or 7 slides to run through. The first is just a little bit of background about Prometric, but then I thought I might get into our topic, AI, and what we've kind of seen from AI and how we think about it in terms of test assessment and development. So Prometric has been in the marketplace for about 30 years. We are also an end-to-end assessment services provider. We are a global testing network with over 180 countries and deliver over 8,000 test centers worldwide. We have global clients in multiple languages, but are headquartered here in the United States in Baltimore. We service the technology verticals, education, healthcare, and others. We have an AI product and a large team of AI data scientists who work with this. So we acquired a company called Fine-Tune about 3 years ago, who had been working with large language models and ChatGPT for many years before to create the first AI engine that was designed for test assessment and content development. And so it was developed by the assessment industry for the assessment industry with eyes to psychometrics, AI science, cognitive and learning science, and alignment studies. If you go to the next slide, there's 2 different products within this. The first is what we call Generate, which is an assessment creation engine that allows SMEs to be turbocharged, to be able to generate high quality items more quickly. The model receives feedback and continuously improves, and each of these models are built specifically for an assessment client, for their purpose, and for their JTA and test blueprint. Also allows us to add high quality rationales that support the development of this content and make it easier to review and then integrate within item banking systems. If you flip to the next slide, there are a few worries that people have when interacting with AI that I thought might be useful to highlight in what we think about from a day-to-day basis. Using generic AI engines, I know a lot of you have heard about hallucinations and them being prone to that. This system that we have developed has instituted guardrails. Our AI scientists have put guardrails in to reduce that error and reduce the hallucinations. Another concern clients sometimes have about using AI is no visibility into the data, or no data visibility or control, meaning that you don't, once you develop an item, do you actually have rights to it? Can you copyright it? With using this engine and with humans being able to manipulate it, one, your data stays within this walled garden and controlled environment, so it is not able to be used by others or even by a large language model outside of the Prometric environment. So you maintain your rights to that data that you're feeding into the model. The model's tuned with psychometric data. It provides rationale for decisions. Sometimes generic AIs can be a black box and not understanding how the model is coming up with answers. Finally, it is purpose-built for SMEs and integrated. I thought it might be really interesting on the next slide to see what type of savings our clients are finding when using these types of engines. So when they're using ours, they're able to move 18 times faster from blueprint to committee review of their exams. They're also seeing drastically fewer review cycles and pretty significant cost savings of over 60%. Two more slides. The other product we have is something that we call Fine-Tune Catalog, which is an alignment and tagging engine. So to rapidly tag your assessment and learning content to any set of standards or framework. This is another type of customized AI model within a walled garden so that it's not accessible by anybody else outside of your organization. Also provides evidence and high quality checks. We have also seen some pretty interesting savings and time savings from this product, 88% faster item alignment and 85% cost savings. So this is such a relevant topic today. I can just see by how many people are here, and we are really seeing it bear fruit within the marketplace and helping just supercharge the test assessment industry. It's a really exciting topic. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks very much, Missy. And now we're going to hear from Liz Dombrowski, who's from the Institute of Credentialing Excellence, to talk about what's going on at ICE.
Well, good morning or afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Liz Dombrowski. I work in accreditation services at ICE. I'm mostly here to talk about the exchange. I know I'll see many of you in a few weeks in Phoenix. We do have a backup hotel because everyone was mad we sold out. So we do have a backup hotel with a shuttle if you're still interested in that. Important things to remember is that we do have openings still for volunteering for 2026. That call to volunteers just opened, as well as the ICE Leadership Development Program. So we would love to work with all of you wonderful people next year. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat right now. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks to Christine, Misty, and Liz. Now I'm going to transition it to the educational portion of our session today. So if you give us just a little bit of time, I'm going to stop sharing and allow Judith Hale and her team to introduce themselves and start sharing their slides. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. And here we go. When it was Jennifer Naughton who reached out, I was really honored and delighted, but I pulled together a little team here, and it's really about them and their work. Jerry and I, who will be supporting here, but we bring in Dr. Rob Fauché, who's really our researcher on our team, and Andrew, who's going to be walking you through a demo. I'd like for a moment to introduce our panelists. We have the Advanced Vehicle, Automotive Vehicle Training and Education Credentialing Coalition, David McColtz, who's the president. The International Facility Management Association, we have Angie Dyson and David Deckert, who are working with this, and we have the Regulatory Affairs Professional Society, that's Roya, and we have ST Learning Solutions, Shana, with us. So I'm gonna let you introduce themselves in just a moment. Here we'll go from here, and what we're going to do, why are we here? We want to start out with how might we use AI to help maintain the relevancy of our domain knowledge. Now, there's a lot of work about test generation. That's not the focus. Our focus is how do we maintain our domain knowledge? And then how do we improve the instructional integrity of our training, this is particularly for our certificate programs. So I would like to, before we go on, I'd like to have our panelists, Dave with the Automotive Vehicle Training and Education Credentialing Coalition. Would you please introduce yourself, tell us what you're doing, and what do you see your biggest challenge or opportunity with AI?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Judy. My name is Dave Mockholtz with Avtech, and we are an emerging organization around the credentialing of automotive technicians in a performance-based way. So we're seeing, challenges and opportunities, but mostly opportunities with AI as a small emerging organization to help to speed up the process of implementation. And happy to be a part of this morning. Thank you, Judy.
You're very welcome. He's done a lot in this world in terms of AI. And I hope we'll get to hear from you more on that, David. Okay. So Angie and David Deckert, who would like to introduce yourself? How would you like to do this, please?
I can go ahead, go first.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Angie Dyson, and I am an instructional designer and course development project manager at IFMA. So one of the ways that I use AI is to connect underperforming exam questions directly to our course content. So it helps to make that verification easier and highlight any ambiguous content that could confuse our learners. So for me, the real opportunity with EI is in efficiency and insight. It allows me to process a lot of information quickly and to document my decisions more consistently, and then finally maintain a strong link between the learning outcomes and our assessment validity. The challenge isn't about trusting the technology, it's about managing the accuracy, structure, and alignment so the results reinforce our credentialing integrity and learner confidence.
Thank you. David?
Hi, my name's David. I'm also with IFMA. I'm a colleague of Angie's. We both work in the professional development department. I manage IFMA's item writing for the training side. We have a certification as well. One of our big goals for the last 12 months or so is to get involved with AI, and I consider ourselves still sort of on that learning curve, probably like many of you on this call. Challenges will include just that, learning to use it to the best of our ability to get the best out of it that we can. The challenge that I shared with part of the team a little while ago was with SME management. This is a theme that you'll hear kind of throughout, which is not just to push the buttons to get something out of it, but to then manage your SMEs to get the best out of whatever the output is as well. So I'm happy to be here. It's an honor to share what I can. And thank you, Judy, for the invitation.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Is Roya here?
Yes, I am.
Well, good. Roya, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you see as a challenge or opportunity?
I'm Roya Zurnahad. I'm the Director of E-Learning for the Regulatory Affairs Professional Society. My team develop self-paced education for our members. We've been growing into leveraging AI with our course development. It's been primarily seen as an opportunity to speed up the ideation, so that we can shorten and be more concentrated with our work, with our SMEs. But there's still a lot of learning curves, just as Dave said. Most of it is the art of prompting and figuring out how to leverage within some of the technology constraints within our own organizations concerned about the privacy and IP concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. Shayna?
Hi,
Would you
thank
like-
you, Judy. I am Shayna Trieger. I have most recently had the pleasure of working with Judy Hale, Roya, and Jennifer Naughton with the regulatory affairs professionals. I have a background in accreditation, instructional design, certification, certificate programs, and recently, of course, working with the regulatory affairs professionals to develop some exams and working with our subject matter experts smarter with some AI at our fingertips.
Right. I think one of the things I find is that AI helps our subject matter experts, turns them into really good critics, in that way. So before I go on, I'd like to go back and ask Rob Fauché. We introduced him quickly at the beginning, but Rob, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in this field?
Good to join everyone this morning. My interest in this field really goes back to working with Judy, good gosh, over a period of 40 odd years now on the issue of performance-based certification and certification of competency as opposed to knowledge. This has huge implications both for the way in which you assess, but also the way in which you train. And teaching, the challenge that I see with AI is to get the system or create a system that understands that distinction and knows what to do about it. And that's a major challenge, which we've been struggling with, frankly. There are lots of things that we can do with AI. The two applications that we're talking about today are important contributors to the overall quest, but they will not provide you with a simple solution.
Right. Thank you. We all want our instant mashed potatoes, Rob. Remember that. Get disappointed we don't have instant mashed potatoes, but it really can take some of the pain out of what we're doing that way. Well, I would like to move on. Did anybody else? Did I forget anybody? Can I go ahead? Jerry, you're going to keep me honest, okay? All right. Well, I'm going to keep going here. What we said, our first thing has to do with how might AI help with us in maintaining our domain knowledge. Now, those of you in credentialing, you do the classic every 10 years, the big jobs task analysis study, the big study. Sometimes we call it practice analysis, whatever you call it. You do the big study. And in that, you produce a blueprint and you come up with your domains and things like that. And I think there's a huge opportunity for AI to be used to help us more efficiently and more cost effectively maintain that domain knowledge. And so that's what we're going to demonstrate. So we're going to actually walk you through that process. So it's called data scraping. Okay. And as Rob pointed out, you have to give your AI partner a bounded problem. Now you have to define what it is you want it to do. Then you can use it to examine scrape data from your work products. You can look at your own research, your own publications, your industry publications, whatever. And then you dialogue with that system. And here's where you create a lexicon and say what you want it to find, what you want to do it. Then you run the system periodically to find out what's new. Then you always trust but verify. My point is, for many people, many of my organizations that I observe, that decade big study is huge in its cost, both in dollars and in staff time and in volunteer time. And I'm not suggesting this will get rid of that. No, I'm suggesting maybe if we could use AI, we might reduce the burden on that. Something that's my intent. So when we talk about doing this, we have the first thing is our sources. Where do we get our data? We can start internally. You can look at your own personal or your industry-related publications, government regulatory agents, whatever. And here's some over here. But in your handout, which you're going to be sent because we can't figure out how to give it to you now, it has a whole bunch of resources, Google of which is only one. And I can't stress how many good resources out there, many of which are free, vetted, very well vetted data sources, okay? Next, the challenge is the lexicon. This is your dictionary. What do you want to tell us to research? Now, everybody has, I once worked with the wheelchair people and with USAID, and they could not agree, is it a ramp or is it a lift? They had all the same, different words to say the same thing. But a lexicon means what we agree on are the words we want to search, because AI can only get what it's told to get, okay? And the goal is to have some agreement on that. And good lexicons include both the relevant, the synonyms and variations, along with what you don't want included. Here's an example. If you were doing research in sexual abuse, you might want to say, we want you to look for these words: sexual offending, child sexual abuse, recidivism, prevention, etc. But we don't want substance abuse, elder abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, see? And then you might say we want risk assessment tools, polygraph, other things. Let's say you want to do something in the latest thing in data literacy. Again, you might say data, these BIM and CMS, those are IFMA words, okay, acronyms. This is for them, predictive maintenance, something like that. But you don't want financial literacy, business literacy, you see? So when you create this for your search tool, you have to tell you what to find and what you don't want it to find, okay? And then you say you have your tools. There are 3 types of tools. Again, in your handout, you have lots of examples of this. You have your academic and research discovery tools your AI can search from. It can do it web and preprint. They catch things before they're formally, it's like in the wind. And then you have trend detection and analyst platforms. These are very important tools that you can have your AI use to do that, okay? So with this, I've just given you a big dump of which is all in your handout, but now I'm going to turn over to Jerry and Andrew, and they're going to actually show you doing this, okay? So when they have identified the problem, they've identified their lexicon, they've identified the reliable sources, and they picked their tools. So here's what they're doing, and Jerry, I'm going to, if I can find you, see if I can't turn this over to you. Okay. Jerry, do you have it or not? Okay, Jerry. Where are you, Jerry?
Judy, I think we're good. I'm sharing my screen now, and thank you for the intro. The world of work is transforming rapidly, and no longer is performance improvement solely about getting people to do more and faster. So how is AI transforming work? And how does this impact credentialing? And why does it matter? So I'm really honored to be a part of this team with Judy, of course, master of credentialing, great team builder and collaborator. Rob on this team is amazing. I've known Rob since he was a mentor and co-worker decades ago at Applied Learning. And I recall listening to him and reaching up into the thoughts swirling around me from our conversation, and as if grabbing an apple from a tree, pulling down something I could sink my teeth into. And all these decades later, I can't think of anyone more qualified to look at the content we're generating. So really critical roles. Andrew and I have been collaborating over a shorter amount of time, and we've watched demos of technology, including AI. It's often difficult to evaluate output, especially during a demo. But for me, having had the chance to sit down with Andrew and have him walk me through some of his work, I've developed an appreciation for the what, how, and why behind his thinking. So, and I'm really excited to have this panel because it's a unique approach for me, but this is where the rubber meets the road and we get some feedback from people who actually need this stuff to be correct and accurate, usable. So the future, and this I've heard it at least from Elon Musk, of whether you're a fan or not, but others have said, future is AI and robots, and you have a choice. You can be a participant or a spectator. So I think about performance improvements as it relates to AI and robots. People will have a gradually diminished role in most tasks. So drivers, for example, make up half the jobs. But we're at a point where self-driving cars and trucks and soon drones are safer and more reliable than those driven by humans. So I've kind of identified I'll call them the stages of AI acceptance, starting with disbelief. You all probably remember your first time seeing an LLM or AI, and it's just mind blowing. And it's like, wow, how did I not know this was here? And then the next thing is, for me, was overwhelm. I can't believe all this. This is amazing, and there's no way I can get my head around this. And from there to skepticism, kind of, is this really useful? This seems like garbage. And seeing a lot of garbage, you can come to that conclusion. But then we get to acceptance when we finally see something work the way we expected it to, or the way we want it to, or we learned how to tweak things to get it where you want it. And then finally to cautious optimism, which is where I am now. Many of us are probably there. We see impressive results. We want to know that what we're getting and sharing with our teams, our customers, is solid, true, and backed by evidence. So coming into this demo, we had several tools to choose from. One we've used in the past was Gumloot. There's different API tools, but I find myself continuously coming back to the two companies, for better or worse, that I've been trusting for decades. We've been trusting Microsoft, which is working with OpenAI, and Google, which has Gemini. And in this case, OpenAI just recently came out with a new tool. It's called Agent Mode, and we have worked with it relative to this project. So Agent Mode is combines the operator and deep research models. Operator, so these are two that existed already in ChatGPT. So we're within that tool. Operator allows you to interact with websites visually using a virtual browser environment. And that includes clicking buttons, filling out forms, and navigating the web page. So it's actually doing things, and you can see it do those things that a human might otherwise do. The deep research side is extensive multi-step research and the intelligent synthesis of information from multiple sources to generate high-quality reports and analysis. So combined, they allow for complex multi-step tasks autonomously, functioning much like a human assistant with access to a computer, web browser, code execution, and connected applications. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew. Andrew is a recent graduate of Boise State OPWL program. He worked for the department as a research assistant, and currently he works as a performance improvement consultant for the Hale Center as an associate. So Andrew gets to integrate his diverse background in hospitality, eye care, and English as a foreign language. Take it away, Andrew.
Well, thank you for the glowing review there, Jerry. When we're looking at, I suppose, AI in this case, we've already done a fair bit of pre-work before ever touching the AI. We're still keeping a fair bit of human in the loop here. And going through what Judy was mentioning earlier, we've decided that we're going to go ahead and demo, I guess, a process. So yes, we're using GPT for this demo. However,
Jerry, you have to stop sharing.
although it's fine to share right now. This is okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we've just, for this demo, we're going to go ahead and we're going to simulate essentially what is a, oh goodness. We're going to go ahead and demo basically like what we do in research, which is basically a literature review, and then we're going to turn that into an executive summary. So for this example, we've decided that we're going to do water conservation, and that's the problem that we want to solve. And in this case, we're going to try to improve our domain knowledge by saying what kind of opportunities are there to improve water conservation systems. We've already decided what lexicon that we're going to use. So we're choosing, these are terms, particularly when we're using a tool that interfaces with us using words, our choice in words winds up being very important. So we're going to include words like gray water, geothermal flush, lawn care, cooling. We're going to also ignore some phrases as well because we're not exactly interested in those for the sake of this demonstration. So things like solid waste, darker black water, etc. We've also decided on a couple of sources we're going to use for the demo as well. You can use more or less, but you still want to be sure that the data you're grabbing from is valid or useful, because if you just go ahead and use the technology as is, you might end up with stuff from Reddit or Facebook, and that's not as helpful. So we've decided on the US Geological Survey and the Natural Resources Defense Council. And then we've gone ahead and we're going to go ahead and use the agent mode for AI, which is a fun little development. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and start showing you a little bit what that's about. Prior to this technology being implemented, you would require some level of technical expertise in order to actually utilize the technology. Like if you're going to think of it like kind of like a factory line, a chain of APIs winds up kind of making one task go through, and you would have to know how to set that up. And whether or not your APIs work together is kind of a matter of experimentation. What's cool about these new tools with GPT-5, which this same feature is integrated inside of Copilot and so on, so as long as you're using those models, this should work. You can now do it just by the same way that you and I would normally interact with a more general purpose generative AI, which is to just prompt it. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and check out this little plus, and you can notice there's like different modes here. So we're going to go ahead and go into agent mode. And you can kind of decide, there's some common things that it will present, but we actually like the report here because we're going to go ahead and try to make an executive summary. So we are ultimately going to be reporting. So we're kind of going to focus on that. And I've gone ahead and I've kind of pre-made a prompt here. And this is kind of how you would access that. And we'll go a little bit through what that'll look like ultimately, but you would go ahead and go from there. But let's go ahead and look at a kind of a pre-made one. And this is a less sophisticated set of prompts for this sake. But let's go ahead and walk through that. So again, this is not perfect, and there will be some demonstrated mistakes that were made during this process, but so long as you're kind of thinking through the process, you'll be able to make similar results with this. So for this prompt, we use the same 3 steps we did when we were talking through it earlier. So we've decided what our problem is and what we were trying to do. So we are going to make a report looking for improvements in water conservation systems. Awesome. We've also chosen which terms we're including. We got our microplastics and particulates, our rainwater, we have all that stuff. We've also decided what we don't want to have. And we've also given it 2 links. Now, in this case, you may notice that these aren't just the main site links. We've actually gone one step deeper. That can be helpful. Things about AI, they have different levels of processing power, and by chunking things into smaller pieces, this can actually help it go through better. As you can see here, we're already in the water resources area. And this is not the only thing that USGS does for the Geological Survey, but going one step deeper does limit the scope of where you're actually pulling from, which is useful. And then additionally, we've gone ahead and we've also added this little blurb at the end. And since if we're thinking back to the beginning of what we're actually trying to accomplish, which is comparing the domain knowledge for opportunities for improvement, we also kind of need to have an understanding of what's currently true. So in this case, if you have your own content that you want to compare this to, this would be the place for that. In this case, we've, for an example, just left it here to say that, establish it against, known means and methods. Fine. And in this case, it actually did fail the first time we did this. And we had to stop it after about 9 minutes. That's fine. What ended up happening here is that we just had too many sources. Now you may get it to go through both links. However, it doesn't always manage to get it consistently. So in this case, all we did was we've gone ahead and said, hey, you know what? Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and break this down into one link at a time. And whatever one that it doesn't pick first, we'll just do the other one after. So about after 5 minutes, we have our initial thing. Hey, not too bad. We have, explanations of what gray water is. We know where the links are coming from. Now, this actually is really useful because, research like this, or doing the literature review process can take dozens to hundreds of hours, depending on the content that you're talking about. If you're utilizing an SME to, trust but verify the materials being generated here, you now have a means of going back and checking this. And this process, all in all, takes about 20 minutes if you're following kind of a basic structure and going through the data bit by bit. So this is excellent. We have all of our uses of gray water here, saying what it is, why you would do it. Cool. It included our things that our search terms, so our microplastics. It talks through what the NRDC says through multiple links. So you can go back and verify all of those. Very cool. It talks about our rainwater, which we also defined as a term we were interested in. We love that. It talks about our water quality. Our evaporation reduction was also something we asked about. Very cool. And then here's our comparison to traditional systems. Now, that's cool. We have our conclusions, recommendations. However, in this context, maybe we forgot actually, we don't just care about this from a fact-based perspective. We actually care about this from a specific perspective. So we actually we're going to say for the next part of this prompt, since we only went through one link so far, we're going to say we actually care about this from the facility management perspective. So rather than just talking about it in a more general sense, we want these suggestions to relate back to an industry. So that's fine. We're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to use the same kind of instructions. We're going to continue the same kind of report using the other link. And then we also are going to go ahead and say, yeah, please frame it from a facility management perspective. Excellent. Why do you say please? It responds better, actually, to being polite, but very cool. So it's going to do the same thing. This one took about 6 minutes, and it does very much a lot of the same things, except this time, instead of using the other source, this is using the global geological survey from the United States. Very cool. It says like what it is, how it's used. And we start seeing some of the new changes that we have. Cool. Well, now we have a facility management perspective here, at least in part. Talks about our microplastics compared to established practices. So we don't really even lose that element of it, but we just now have the additional context of saying, hey, actually, we're doing it from this other perspective, which is very nice. We have different methods here that are being demonstrated on recapture. Very neat. And then it gives us now this new table, which you can copy the whole table from here. But if you wanted to read it in plant, you can kind of go across. But yeah, it breaks it down for you. You get a nice little table. It gives us a new conclusion from this perspective. And you're like, that's very cool. But what we actually care about is not just the one source, but what these look like combined. And this is where we get into our executive summary. So we're going to go ahead and ask it to synthesize this data into an executive summary. And this is much easier because once you can do this as many times as you need to through as many sources as you need to. And we've already broken it down into something that's manageable for the AI to go through, since we've managed to get it to succeed twice. And now we have our executive summary. And we actually asked it to keep our citation references so we can, again, go back and verify. It leaves us a nice little paper trail we can follow. You can see we have our benefits and obstacles. It goes through each and every single part. And this is what you'd be talking to when you're talking to an executive suite, or maybe you're talking to board of directors, but yeah, or executives. This is something that they'd more likely be looking like. And this, again, utilizes your SME's time a lot better, but it gives us our center. If we wanted to see it kind of in action, we can go back to what we were doing, right? This is the same prompt we used earlier, but I've broken this down just to make it easier for the AI to read. So breaking it down into its component parts, labeling the links. So this, if we want to see what it actually looks like in process, you can. So it's thinking about what we're doing. Now, this may in fact fail because, again, we have 2 links here instead of just the one, but this is still demonstrative on how it's going to work here. Oh, interesting. it didn't actually do. It's just kind of repeating what it did before. Let's see if we can do this from here. It shouldn't automatically do a report. It's supposed to be moving through. Okay, and it should have a little video pop up. There we go. So this is what it's supposed to actually do. And you can actually see it working here. It's not a perfect technology, but you can kind of go ahead and it's now thinking through. You can actually follow it along. You can even take control of the browser if you need to, or ask it to stop. But you can see it's actually like starting to go through the process of doing the scraping in real time. And you can monitor this as you wish. You can see it's opening through and reading PDFs. It's doing all that sort of things. It's actually a pretty neat little technology in that sense. And if you were, again, not to specify what kinds of links you decided were acceptable, this would be pulling from things like, again, Reddit and Facebook or whatever the first available resources are. So doing a little bit of due diligence here goes a long way. Do we have any questions about this? I think this is more or less like finalizing kind of what I have to demonstrate with you guys today, but it's a pretty neat technology.
So Andrew, I know a question came up before about reading PDFs, and some people have had mixed results with those. What's been your experience?
Sure. So reading PDF, even though we like to think about, oh, this is like GPT, this is like one AI. All these technologies are actually collections of AI doing things, and they excel at different tasks, and depending on what you're doing, better or worse. Now, this particular set of the tech, it gets better all the time, of course. However, PDFs can be a struggle, especially if there's lots of graphics inside. If you ever run into things like that, you can end up, just using a static image instead. Like, and if you know what you're trying to reference, providing a like PNG or just like a regular static image example of the same thing sometimes works better just because it has an easier time reading it. But this does better than the like original default. If you're just using the standard GPT-5, you're outside of agent mode specifically, then it doesn't do as good of a job as this particular version does of reading
And
things
feel
like
free to put
PDFs.
any questions you might have in the chat as well. We can cover them either way. One other question I had was about, I've had this experience where I'm using a tool like this, and the more I iterate, the worse it gets. Can you talk about why that might happen?
Sure. There's a lot of reasons why that could happen, but the most common reason why you might see drift and things is either because of, terms might not be necessarily fixed, but also the way that memory works on this, if you can call it that, is that it will the entire thread, it has to reread the entire piece from top to bottom. So even though it kind of looks like it's responding just to what you're saying, it's actually kind of rereading all of the content that came before it as it goes down and as you continue to interact with it. So if this starts becoming very like long or cumbersome, this can become more and more difficult for it to read. So it can end up losing pieces of information that are critical or crucial. So if you end up in situations like that, you can either start a new thread. As you can see, I've done water conservation a number of times here. And that can be helpful if you need to, again, break things down into smaller parts, so long as you're able to go back and fix it. Or you can store the data in different ways. Like if you're providing your own files, those aren't necessarily part of the same limit as the thread. You can just reference specific documents that you find within inside of the thread text. Okay, I guess I'll hand it back
Judy,
over to
you're
you, Jerry.
muted.
Thank you. I was going to say, are you have any other final words, Andrew? Otherwise, can we put these people in breakouts to have them discuss what they saw?
Yeah, go ahead and have breakouts. I'm sticking around obviously for questions. So if you do end up coming up with any, feel free to reach out.
Yes, yes, breaking down the question portions is very important that way. Absolutely. So Jerry, or do you want me to do this or how?
I have breakouts ready to go.
You have them ready to go?
As far as the slide, got you. Yeah, why don't you, that's great.
Then I can stop sharing and you can do your breakouts.
It's like we're coming back slowly but surely. Everybody has the correct heads on the correct shoulders. Yeah, okay, that's good. So Judy, we did have a couple people join during, so they'll be with us for the going forward. It just had a time zone issue, so
Yeah.
otherwise, I think everyone's probably back.
So do we have anybody like to share anything insightful? My group was talking about copyright issues. And did anybody else have anything that they'd like to comment on or share they got from that experience? Your groups?
Yeah, big concern is copyright and right now the people in my group are reticent to use AI yet for test development, item generation, because of that question. I mean, I guess it hasn't been established, correct me if I'm wrong yet, how much human input you have to prove to the Copyright Office was involved in the generation of your items for those items to be copyrightable. I mean, is there some kind of rubric or gauge that anyone knows of that maybe they're using or can be used?
Well, I can tell you the courts have ruled that we're talking about data scraping, not necessarily item generation, but data scraping, they've already ruled that Google, what they scrape is a fair use. And when the demonstration that Andrew was showing you, he gave you the links. So if you were writing reports, you should, as a professional courtesy, always cite your references and what have you. In terms of your creating items or something like that, I think I have yet to see it. So we'll see what the lawyers have to say about 2/3 of the words have to be human generated. Interesting how that algorithm's going to unfold, Stephen. I don't know. But I do know that you have to show that your humans touched it and worked with it. But I also know that there's guidelines that you do in items, and those are generic questions, and those are just generic things. I know, like in the items, I always ask that they be actual questions, not open-ended statements. You know, you want parallelism in your distractors. You don't want specific determiners. Those are your rules that you give AI and helping you generate. Yeah. I don't know that that affects copyright, but does somebody else agree or disagree here?
We talked a little bit, Judy, about copywriting in our group. Imam says she was able to successfully copyright some of the things that she had created in AI. So there's a lot of citation involved, obviously, and being very clear about what you may be using it for and when. The rest of the way I would, I guess, summarize our group is we're largely exploratory. Some of us have used AI more than others to create things like knowledge bases, or that's a goal in the future, to create guidelines, things that, you know, some of the human element guardrails that would take a lot of time to do, AI can, in some cases, be very helpful for, to kind of get you going on the right foot.
You have some interesting links in your chat. I'd encourage you to, from Sam, I'd encourage you to look at those, okay? Fine. Yeah, we have translation here, closed system. I think the important is you usually you want to protect it. You don't want it to go out in the general public. There's that. That's the most important thing. In terms of your own, we'll see how this unfolds, but you've been given some links on this. What we're talking about here today, our demonstration was how do we data mine our own professional literature so that we are up to date. So it doesn't mean it changes our blueprint necessarily, but maybe we then provide white papers, maybe we provide other links or maybe we require it for maintenance, because I think as a service to our members, we want to help make sure that they're current in that discipline. So that's what we're talking about here, right? Okay, we have about 20 minutes left, and we will send you the handout, which has all kinds of guidelines to it. And we're going to try going on to another demonstration. Are we okay? Anybody have any last minute heartburn, questions, issues you want to raise? Speak up now. Okay. Well, the other issue has to do with if you have certificate programs and you have in your training. And in my work, I see a lot of very good people developing instructional products that are not very well done. And I think AI can really help us here in how to use AI to improve our instructional quality. I want to come back to our panelists, David, Angie, Shana. So David, do you have anything you would like to, Dave McColt, do you have anything you would like to share with how you're using it to help you in developing your training or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. In parallel to some of the work we do in credentialing, I personally do quite a bit of training and training development for the automotive industry. And, one of the challenges that we face is just last year, let's say 100 electric vehicles came out. So we can't wait 7 to 10 years for material to come out to support that. We have to be able to design materials and learning experiences rather quickly. So how we've used AI a little bit, Judy, and as I've shared with you, we looked at perspective of we do multi-brand training for all sorts of different vehicle manufacturers, but how do we get subject matter experts engaged in that process? So we created templated course outlines, and from those course outlines plugged into ChatGPT questions that relate back to the course outline. That can then be used as a model for interviewing subject matter experts via Zoom with the coordination of Fathom AI. And the way that we're using that is to expedite the process of helping SMEs communicate that information in a way that we can quickly take and start to plug into that course outline and then develop from that learning materials in the form of PowerPoint presentations for virtual presentations and things like that. So that's taken the process of working with SMEs that could be months and months, maybe years, right, to get to a short form course development to a process that we've been able to greatly reduce, probably down to weeks. So that's been very helpful, and to go back to the copyright piece, the AI, right? If you're referencing materials that are out in the public domain, or if you're working with your SMEs, that doesn't worry me so much because you still need the subject matter experts, and that's really what's going to supply you with that sort of criticality, and so to speak, or that subject matter expertise that really is your copyrightable piece, right? So that doesn't bother me so much as we're creating in that piece, but that's just one example of how we're using AI for course development.
Thank you. David and Angie, would you like to speak to this a bit?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on something that Dave just said, to treat your SMEs as your sort of your copyright backstop, right? Because they're the ones that are going to guide you through all of your usage with this stuff. From IFMA's perspective, we come into AI usage basically already knowing what our lexicon and authoritative sources are because our members tell us what those are. So when we use SMEs in, for example, item writing or reviewing content, for example, what they'll do is it gets you to the point of where you can then do something with what's been created. that it's a little confusing to grasp around, but when you see an AI demo, let's say from a company, or you go to their website and you see a little demo of how product X can do whatever, there's a lot of gee whiz involved. It's fantastic, it's great. But if you go a little deeper, especially if you sit down with anybody selling you an AI product, they will emphasize again and again and again and again how important your SMEs are. Because they're coming at it from the perspective of accuracy and all that kind of stuff that we worry about. In my own experience, what I can share with you is that even if your output from AI, whatever you're asking it to do, is just excellent, it's totally great, you now have all this pile of stuff to deal with. You've got to process that data somehow, and that's where your SMEs come in handy. A lot of the times you'll see AI companies suggest the company, works with the AI, and the SME sits over there as the person who vets the info. That's probably a sane way to do it in terms of a SME management, because if you're training them on AI, in some ways you're doing double duty. I won't go into that too much right now, but that's something to kind of keep in the back of your mind.
Okay, thank you. Angie, did you want to add?
Not necessarily to piggyback off what David said, but how I use AI and what I always try to remember is that it's not going to replace what I do. It just enhances what I do. And I am consistently going back and checking, or SMEs can consistently go back and check the accuracy of what is in our content. What is this accurate? Where did you find this information? A lot of these things I will ask the AI, where did you find this information? Give me citations, all of those pieces. I think the most important thing that I've learned about working with AI is if it comes up with something that is contrary to what you think is correct, or that it just doesn't look quite right, or if you find blatantly that it has given you a wrong answer. You've gone back to a certain page in a student guide to look at this information and you're like, that's not what this says at all. Help me to understand. My question to AI is always, help me to understand how you got that answer. Where did this information come from? Was it in my prompting? Was it did you get confused on something? But that's always questioning the AI is something that I do a lot. And I think that it's a good practice when it comes to working in these various systems.
Absolutely. One of the things I'm also finding is that sometimes in looking at your subject matter, we find out that what's in the training is inaccurate. So it helps improve the quality control of your training also. So it points out a mismatch, okay, in doing that. Yes, and the goal is we don't need a mismatch. We want to make sure that our training is reinforcing the correct concepts, rules, and principles, and therefore our test is actually assessing against the correct content and rules as well. So I found accidentally that I get some quality assurance activities out of here. Shana, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sorry, I'm muted. I'd like to reiterate what David and Angie had said. And honestly, your subject matter experts are your key to validation to make sure the information that you are getting, because you do get an information dump, is accurate. And as Judy said, make sure it's accurate with what you want your questions to ask or your training to teach. And as I tell my kids as they're in high school, work smarter, not harder, and just use the tools that you have, but don't forget that you have a brain too, and you have resources, and you have subject matter experts to make sure that the content is valid and fair and reliable.
Right. Well, we're kind of running out of time. I want to point out the main thing here is I use this here is if what you do is just giving information versus you really building skills. And I consider this a scale of integrity in terms of your training. And the closer you're saying your training is building capability the closer you need to get all this stuff over here to the right. And I am finding that AI is very good at helping create case examples and non-examples. We tend to forget that people learn more from what's wrong than they do from what's right. So you want both good and bad examples, and you want commentary. So if your training is online, it's not instructor-based, it's really essential that you give a commentary, explain why something was right, what was overlooked, and what have you. You also have a chance to give guided demos. You can do gaming. There's lots of opportunities here, simulations with practice. So this is a whole bunch. We can use AI to make this much, much more efficient for us that way. So I'm just going to do one part of my little demo here, just as a point for you. And I'm going to do this for a moment, and you'll get this just a second. Okay, there we go.
No, yeah, it's your screen, Judy. Oh, there we go. It's coming
Can you
out.
see it? So this is where I had a subject matter expert, well-meaning person who put together a one-day course. And he wants to have his colleagues do it. Well-meaning kind of thing. And he sent it to me. And so here's what I did. You can see the cue. It was a bunch of PowerPoint slides. This document is for 1 day or 6-hour instructor-led course. I want a content outline and structural outline with examples and exercises to require learners to discuss and reflect on the content. I want the instructional outline that shows where the instructor should give good and bad examples, the concept, etc. Start with the content outline. Now, what's interesting about this prompt is it's not perfect. Just want to point that out to you. And it came back and says, excellent. Based on your slide deck, we're going to give you a content outline, structural outline, and tells me what that means. Now, real quickly, here's this content outline, timing, core concepts, key learning. Then here's our instructional outline, instructor actions, good example, bad example, learner engagement. Did that for everyone. Just fascinating. But here's what I found interesting. Here's now, okay, I get through all of that. Now, now it asks me, would you like to do a facilitator's guide? And I said, yes, please. So good. It says, now it's interesting. It's now going to cue me. It's interesting. Shifted roles. Instead of me telling it, it's going to ask me what I want. I'll create this. Fully aligned, includes timing, instructor prompts, slides, references, everything else. But it says now before I start, do you want it written a 6-hour agenda or 7-hour with breaks? Would you prefer script, conversational, or professional outline? Oh, I want tell what I want, cover. Oh, excellent. Gives me feedback. Thanks me for my feedback. I love this. That's the best choice for this kind of relationship building program. Oh, I guessed right. Next, it says, it gives me, here's what I'll prepare. I'll give you a facilitator's guide, conversational coaching, slide references, build an engagement. Then it goes back and says, before I start, would you like the finished guide as a narrative or table? Oh, okay, all right. Okay, fine. So you A or B. Okay, we'll go with the narrative style, Judy. It's conversational, coaching, and tone. Here's how it's structured. So now it comes in each module, slide references. That's what we're going to do. And then would you prefer the 7-hour? Do you want me to do it in 2 parts? Man, making me, okay. Oh, excellent choice again, Judy. All right, now that's what I'm doing. So now it's actually creating. Now here's the facilitator guide, okay? Module 1. What the facilitator is going to say, set the tone, show the video. That's perfect feedback. Prompt group discussion. What did you hear? No stories. What makes it break out? Okay, facilitation tip, capture words. Good example, bad example. Okay, next is flow. Let's start by getting inside the manager's world. Okay, here's the truth. What else? I just found this incredible in how it used this whole thing. We end up with a far better course as a result. Now, this was teaching the subject matter. The learners were not facility managers. These learners were people who sell to facility managers. Okay, So we're telling them how to work with facility managers as a customer. Fascinating. Split in pairs, only one, the vendor, switch roles after 3 minutes. All kinds of learning exercises in here. Say this, good example, bad example, mini reflection. What are you going to do differently? Just the point is, I got a far higher quality training as a result of this. So having done that, I have in your handout, we have other examples, but I would like to go back, if you will, to, do you still see a slide now? Did you change? Thank you. And we don't have time really for breakouts, I'm sorry, but I would like to hear from you based on how you might be using AI in your instructional piece. Anybody using it, improving it? I have other examples, but they're in your handout, okay? Have anybody like to? I just dumped a whole bunch of stuff on you.
We can probably just have people answer those questions on the chat.
You can answer them in the chat, yes. Here is, hang on, I want to do something else. We also have here, I have asked it to develop me for where there is no instructor involved. I've asked it to create job aids and tools. I've gotten some beautiful tools. I've gotten some, here's where I'm looking for I've gotten really good, I've gotten very good and bad examples. I've gotten a case study that's really incredible and very pleased with my case study that really brought to life the points. The point is, AI is really helping novice people build far better instructional products. That's my point. And I'm seeing a lot of stuff called training, which, forgive me, are just badly written white papers. There is no learning element there at all. And it's interesting how innovative it is in helping us create positions of reflection, things like that, getting people to do things. Fascinating. So yes, do we have anything in the chat? Oh, we got 26 chats here. Okay, wow. Let's go from here, okay? Okay. Saving your prompts and reviewing your conversations, all saved in history. Yes, that is exactly. Prompts are very important. A strong basic prompt structure. By the way, I tell it things like, I ask for a Fleisch-Kincaid level. I want the reading level. I give very specific rules on the writing of the training. Second person, I want action. I want things like that. So yes, so you have your content, action, result. Yes, Roya, exactly. You can ask it to provide rationale. Absolutely. I want to know why they're doing that. I want the rationale behind that. You can translate, yes, into Korean. Right. Trying to lengthen our engagement with them. This is a good example. Yes, I found it interesting when I wanted to do something. It kept cueing me about getting clarity on what have you. Okay. Fenced version of Gemini. Okay. Partner with them, have exciting technicians. Okay. Please check your project management. This is about scraping. Again, I have just found it very helpful in terms of improving the quality of the training, okay? So we'd like to turn this back over to Belinda, but before we close, do you have any final comments? I do hope we've given you something to think about and work with. I do hope we've piqued your idea, your curiosity. We are on a learning journey. You will get your hands messy. It does require getting in and playing. You can't just stay on the outside. You have to get in there and not be afraid. There's a handout that we'll be sending, yes. Right, okay. So again, I think it goes back, if you have any other questions or comments, we'll turn this back over to Belinda.
Great, thank you. Thanks to everybody who presented such a thoughtful presentation today. Just a final thank you to the participants also, and to let you know that you will be getting the handout via email. And also there might be within the email you're getting just a little question about topics that you would like to see for next year as we plan for the next year of virtual sessions. So again, thank you. Thanks everybody very much.